Previously on the Praying and Slaying podcast.
So just a monarch of a deer. And so for me in Alabama, I kind of look at it in a couple ways. If I get the deer, great. If someone on my team gets it, it's just like me getting it. I'm not, I'm going to get to hunt here the rest of my life. Something I believe I said in that first podcast we did, Aaron, is like nobody cares about the deer you shoot. Like when you die, the chances of those deer making them to somebody else's wall pretty slim. 2 generations later, they're probably going in the trash if they didn't go in the trash when you first pass away. Um, so, at the end of the day, like community's everything, people are everything. And of course, I want to kill big deer, but if I can have the opportunity to let someone else experience their first buck or their first big buck or, their first opportunity on a stud, I'm going to let them take that just as if not, I'm going to take it. Now, if I can hunt that day and I feel like, hey, I really want to kill this deer for this reason, then I'm probably going to go do that. But there's certain times where I just feel like God leads me to help others.
Welcome back to the Prayin and Slayin podcast, everybody. This is part 2 of our very first Operation Hunt episode with Taylor Philpot. In part 1, he got into his U.S. Air Force career a little bit for us, which was awesome to hear about, and started getting into his origin of his hunting experience. And now we actually get to hear the story of his awesome Alabama monarch he killed this year, nicknamed HONK, and bonus, a big 8-point as well that was tackled by one of his Revive Outdoors mentors that Taylor guided along that journey. So let's jump into that. I can't wait to hear these stories.
And so the last several years, I've killed 150. Another guy on our team's killed a 150. Another guy on our team killed a 150. And then this 8-point that we have yet to score that got killed Saturday is probably as an 8-point somewhere around probably 140. And I'm just as happy as they are. And I think it's abnormal in the hunting world, but I would love to see that normalize where we celebrate people. We let them hunt our spots. It's within respectful parameters. They're willing to listen to me. They're not just going to hunt. And they're willing to, if I tell them, hey, there's a picture of that buck on the camera today. I get it. That doesn't mean he's killable today. You cannot go in there with this wind. You cannot do that. And so as long as they're willing to be respectful of what I'm telling them, then I'm more than willing to help it happen. So this season I harvested a deer in Kansas, ended up killing 125-inch 8-point. I think it's like 122. Ended up killing a what I call the methed up buck. He was methed up looking. His rack was all kinds of crazy. He was actually a pretty big deer. A lot of people when they see his antlers are like, "Whoa, your picture didn't justify how big this deer was." He was a really big buck. He probably who knows what he scored. He didn't score much. He definitely, the doe etchers got him that day. He took a break from hitting the meth lab down the road and come to look for love. And I got him in Kentucky and then didn't get a Michigan buck and trying to think if I hunted any other states. I don't think I had time this year. And then I came back to Alabama and I have these 2 bucks in this one spot. And I killed one January 15th, and then my buddy killed in the same exact spot, killed the other one yes Saturday, so 2 days ago on February, whatever that was. I don't even know, 7th maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see, today's the 10th.
Or no,
So yeah. Yeah, he killed it February 8th. Our season closes today, and Aaron's got me doing this podcast when I could be out hunting. But
we're going to cut
yeah,
folks.
so
We got to get him out there.
yeah, so this spot, because people locally might listen to it, and I try to respect our areas because these bucks get big for a reason. And I tell my guys, hey, don't be sharing, where we killed them at and stuff, just because what happens is people start getting permission on like 1 acre. The next thing you know, they're poaching on us, and it just becomes a safety hazard. And so I'll try not to share too many details, but we're in Birmingham, and I try to find places that are overlooked that people won't think about. Picked up permission spot. Collectively, maybe I have about 100 acres in that area, but this specific piece, I have a spot up on a ridge, This kind of goes down into a low area with kudzu, swamp kind of area, thicket, and goes up into planted pine ridge. And this spot, because of the way the land lays and how the deer use that land, really the only place I knew that we were going to be able to harvest either honk or this big 8 point was on this one sliver of 4 acres on the far edge of the property that kind of it kind of divided, where we could hunt, and then the road was the other boundary. And they would come up, back and forth across the road. I just knew one day they were going to get hit, and but then they'll also run parallel with that road a lot. And then something that's really unique about this is the only place I've ever seen a mixture of kudzu and this really thick vine that I don't really know. I don't know what it's called, but it is the only place that I have ever seen that a deer cannot get through. And I have seen some thick, nasty stuff that you think deer won't go through, and they go right through it. I mean, I've seen a 160-inch deer in a video go under a power plant, high fence basically with barbed wire over top of it, and him just plow through the bottom of it. And so I know deer can go pretty much anywhere, but this specific spot has a barrier of this kudzu and vine combination that is so thick that the only thing that I've ever seen be able to get through it is birds and like rodents. Like even like I haven't seen coyotes or foxes go through it either. They all kind of go around the edge of it. So what that does is that's a forced pinch point. It's a little abnormal than what you would consider a pinch point. And it gives us the opportunity. What we went in there and done is we've cut some really crazy trails through all these vines and kudzu. I mean, it took me one day like 6 hours to cut 50 yards.
Jeez.
And but it allows us to come up in the backside of them and hunt them as long as we have the right wind and they don't know we're there. And so we can observe them a lot. There's one small strip of a power line that we observe them through. And if you wanted to get in and hunt them on that side, I've done it with the saddle, had deer walk right under my feet. It just has to be a wind above about 8 or 9 miles an hour consistently throughout the day to push your scent over top their heads and over top the kind of the ridge where we're at, the vines, because it's got to be able to get over that hump and versus bounce against that hump, your scent bounce against it and then go right back down in that creek bottom where they smell you. So it's possible to hunt them over there on top of them. And I have done that during bow season, but it's very difficult and very challenging. And so we'll start with honk, but the big eight is a very similar situation because they were killed in the same exact spot and they were doing similar things. And so the reason honk has this name is because me and a guy on my team were hunting uh, last season, and every time that we would park on this one part of the road, these people would go by and not like beep beep beep, like hey, we know you're hunting, good luck. It was like yeah,
Jeez.
even longer than that. And then they would turn around at the top of the hill and they'd come back by doing it. So I don't know if it was an anti-deer hunter or if it was somebody who was also wanting to hunt, in that area and mad at us that we were hunting. Either way, I found the person's tag number, got their vehicle, but because the game warden wasn't there to witness it any of the times, then the challenge was that they have to witness it, so we couldn't prosecute for hunter harassment, which was really frustrating. But we just learned not to park on that side of the road, park way down the road. We got permission to park and just walk a little bit. And so that's what we would do. And we knew Honk, this deer, he was only 2.5 years old, probably last year is what we estimated him at. And so he was only 3.5 years old this year. And what I like to do is because I'm in no hurry to kill a deer in Alabama, I'm going to hunt here forever. It's not like when I'm out of state. These big deer that have a lot of potential, I love just watching them and there being no pressure to kill them for 1, 2, 3 seasons, maybe even 4 seasons. I can just learn them. I can pattern them. They're very, learn their habits that hopefully lead to a successful harvest. And that's what led to the harvest of this big mature, 5.5, 6.5 year old 8 point that Devin killed Saturday. But Honk was young. I did not want to kill him this year. I wanted to video him, and I was over there hunting the 8 point. And then if he came out, the goal was to video him. He came out uh, right at dark, and so unfortunately, because I was 100 yards away with a rifle, you couldn't. The camera, because it was last light, would it just kept going in and out of focus, and I wasn't able to get video. But I heard him coming for an hour before he showed up. And it sounded like squirrels or birds or something rustling the leaves. So I just dismissed it because I was like, there's no way a buck's going to make that level of noise for that long. Well, an hour later, the noise is getting closer and closer and closer. And then next thing you know, it kind of goes silent, which means if that's a deer, they always, they're running through these thick leaves and then it goes silent in that last little 8 or so yards because it turns to dirt right there and then comes out on the power line, which is dirt. And so I was like, dang, maybe that is a deer about to come out. And then Honk came out and he was hobbling on 3 legs. So his back right leg, his hip bone had actually lodged up into like against his spine.
Oh, wow.
And I thought maybe initially he was hit by a car because that would be what would make sense. But post harvest, pulling back his cape and everything, there was no indicator of any kind of trauma that took place on his hip. And so my theory is that that big 8 point or a similar big deer and him got in a fight and he was just pushing against it and it somehow popped out of place or antlers got up on him but there was no gouge marks or anything. Or he got pushed off of a ravine or a rock because there's a lot of rock cliffs and faces over there. And I don't know what happened. It was very, very strange. But there's a lot of coyotes over there. And it's hard to hunt the coyotes over there. I don't trap anymore because I physically can't do it. And so I knew that if I didn't take this deer, all of this, I'm thinking through all this and like 2 minutes left of legal light. And I'm like, man, I do not want to shoot this deer. Like, I just don't want to do it. Like, he's too young. He has so much potential, but it's just the right thing to do. He's gonna die. I mean, it took him an hour to get to where he's at right now, and
Mhm.
it was honestly, Aaron, it was the hardest thing I've probably done as a hunter. Um, Taking a buck that I knew had so much genetic potential, just as a young deer that and taking his life at such a young age. It goes against a lot of things that I personally try to strive for. I'm happy for whoever shoots whatever they shoot. If it makes them happy, I'm happy. But for me personally, I just want to try to harvest a mature deer. And I might harvest a younger deer if I have like a goal that I'm trying to go for, like the 50 bucks in 50 states, or a pistol buck. Or right now, I'm trying to get my first buck with a slug shotgun. I might lower my standards a little bit, but I did not with this deer want to do that. And when he stepped out, I just knew the right thing to do was to ethically harvest him, and let instead of letting him suffer and letting coyotes probably eat him to death, or
Mhm.
him trying to cross a road and a car hitting him. And so ended up taking him. He scored somewhere in the 120s, but just a beautiful 11 point Alabama buck. I mean, just a gorgeous deer. Had, dark kind of antlers that, I mean, it was just an awesome buck. But the way that I had pinpointed that buck and the 8 point, two bucks that completely did not socialize. So they were never together. They did not, when Honk would be with his bachelor group, the 8 point would always show up by himself. Like that 8 point did not socialize with other deer unless he was, trying to fight for a doe. But they had a lot of things in consistency that I knew that if I hunted certain conditions, that one of the two of them would show up. And I think I calculated it up and I put it in a post. And Aaron, I don't know if you remember, but I think that they had came through, Honk specifically came through, I want to say like 27 times over the last 2 years. And this was his core area because I knew he was there right at first light and right at last light 2 of those like 27 times. And so I knew that this was not his main core area, but when he did decide to come into that area, it would be his core area. And then watching camera photos, I had recognized through scouting and postseason scouting and in-season scouting that if he went up the hill and bedded, I could hunt him on a northeast northwest wind. But if he went down the hill into the swamp area, even though it might be the same wind, I couldn't hunt him because what would happen is the wind on me, I would think it would be blowing back, the way it came in and be fine, but it would actually, because the way it's slow, the wind would come and hit, kind of curl around down into this ditch, and then the rest of the wind would kind of bounce off that ditch and slowly push my scent back into that swamp to where he could smell me. And so a lot of times he would have probably honestly daylighted if I wouldn't have been there, because he was bedding on that lower area in that kind of swamp area. He was bedding there and he could scent check me. He
Mhm.
would know if I was hunting that power line or not. And once I realized that, just dropping milkweed and watching it, and then kind of even backtracking, like, why should I be killing this deer today and I am not killing him? Like, I know he's bedded right there. I know he didn't go anywhere else. Like, it was even to the point where I was raking all the trails back that I could find. I was raking the trails back at all the spots in that lower area that he would come out of and cross the road or come out of and go to another set of woods. Like I was raking it back to see if I would get buck tracks in it. And I know I wasn't getting buck tracks in it. And so I knew he had to be staying in there. And then sure enough, the camera would go off after I left. And so he had patterned me. And so I had to figure out, okay, how do I make this deer not pattern me? And instead, I pattern it. So I had him patterned, but he also had me patterned. And most of the time, if you're hunting a buck, they have you patterned. If you think about your dog's habitual habits, that they know of you, if you do a certain thing in the morning, your dog's, it'll run ahead of you and sit down or wait for you or whatever. Imagine the level of a deer. A deer's brain to weight ratio is second to humans. And so they're very smart, very intelligent, and we don't give them enough credit for for how smart they are. And their whole goal is survival and breeding. That's really it. And so we have to beat their nose. And so what I did with this deer is I realized I couldn't hunt him unless he went uphill to bed. I couldn't get in there to intercept him coming to that power line because there was no way with how thick that kudzu and fine patch is to get around it, tuck up into it, and then shoot him as he's coming or going. And then sometimes he would bed in the edge of that, really only 60 yards from me. But, it's so thick and nasty, that's where he would hold up. So there was really no way to get in there. I just had to sit back and wait for the right conditions. And oddly enough, the times that he daylighted that I didn't interfere, whether you believe in moon phases or not, if I look at the red moon calendar, which I still don't know what I believe in the moon phases right now, if I believe in it or not. But when you look at the red moon, there's like kind of like a first red moon and then a second red moon. And every time that second red moon, the day before it or the day of it, he would daylight or be right there around first light or last light. Coincidence, maybe, I don't know. But, again, I don't know what I believe about that red moon guide. But that was just a weird, I look at all these different things I can look at, and that was one coincidence that always happened when out of all those 27 photos I had of him, when he would be close at first light, last light, or he would daylight. And so it was bizarre. It had to be a north wind of some kind, northeast, south, or northeast or northwest, or just a north wind. And then the daylight pictures are close to it, where he was bedding really close by, was always around that second red moon. Um, and yeah, that was just the only things that I could really figure out. And I knew what trail he was going to use. I knew what trees he was going to rub and what scrapes he was going to make. I mean, I had really worked this deer, and I had made two mock scrapes specifically for him and for that other big 8 point, and they both worked them religiously. But yeah, it's really neat to really learn a deer and pattern them in that way. But I think the biggest thing that I learned from hunting, these smarter bucks is that which we're going to talk about the 8 point next is what I learned about them is that they pattern you more than you ever patterned them. And their whole goal is survival, and they're not in a rush to die. We'll be in a rush to get to our hunting spot because we're running late, and then we're loud, and then we do something we shouldn't, or we hunt a day that we shouldn't. If you show up and the wind's not right, then don't hunt that day. Just leave. Like you're not going to just magically kill the buck.
Yeah.
If the wind's blowing right to his nose, he's got like 250 times the scent receptors we do. He's not, you're not going to kill him. It's just not
Yeah.
going to happen. So they pattern you, they watch you, they smell you, and they're not coming out until you leave.
Incredible. And this guy, so the wind conditions are right, obviously, and then you landed him on the right day. Do you think his injury had anything to do with you get him that day, or do you think he was injury regardless? He did the same
Yeah,
thing that you had him pegged to do. It just you heard him coming this time and you knew, but obviously dragging that back leg.
yep. So I'm big on looking at historical dates. And so if a buck is in an area, it doesn't have to be nighttime. I mean, it doesn't have to be daytime photos. It can be nighttime photos. But if I've got a buck that doesn't, 100% of the time stay in this kind of core area, if this is a core area he has, but it's only at certain times, then I'll look at that year over year. And typically, if you've got a buck somewhere, say, January 6th is always a really good day for us in Alabama. Like January 6th, if I've got a buck on January 6th last year, then this year he's going to show up on January 6th in that same spot. And that's because certain does go into etrus and are bred at the same time, every year. A lot of that's around the rut, but it's also around food. If a certain acorn drop or a certain persimmon tree or a certain food source is abundant or it's what they need at that point in time, you can pretty much put it on the date. If they show up the year prior, and then they're going to be back there that next year around the same time. And so for that 8 point, we hadn't seen him on camera all year. I went back, I look, I'm like, oh, okay. I got my, bucks mixed up. I thought he was supposed to show up around Christmas, but he actually doesn't show up until January 4th. Guess what showed up January 4th? That buck. And so it's not that he's not there in daylight. Your camera is just not catching him there in daylight. He's there. Your camera might be just facing the on the opposite side of the tree or something, when he runs back by in daylight. But usually they'll come to an area and they'll stay tight to that area for a while, as long as there's does there to breed or a food source there to eat that they're wanting. Last year, I made a mistake. I let too many mentees kill the does, and so the does that they were looking for in primary rut were not there to breed with anymore. And so I had let mentees kill too many of them, and I'm great, great that they got that. But my buck showed up. Both of them showed up for like a day, and then they were gone. I never saw them again until the secondary rut when those younger deer started going into etrus.
Kidding.
But yeah, I pay a lot of time, pay a lot of attention to that historical data, which is why it's great that I'm not in a hurry to kill a certain buck this year. It's like I'm learning that deer and where he's going to be, and if he repeats it 2 years in a row, he's definitely repeating it 3 years in a row, and that'll be the day that I'm sitting there waiting to kill him.
Pretty incredible. And that was the demise of Honk was his day. You knew when his time was coming.
That's
That's pretty
right. I
well.
knew pretty
Unfortunately,
much. Yeah, January 2nd, January 8th, January 15th. I was going to be hunting him and I killed him the 15th. And so
that's
he
awesome.
showed up. He showed up the 8th. I think I was at ATA when he showed up. He showed up the 2nd and I was in New York, I believe. Anyways, he showed up a few times on the dates that I knew exactly when he was supposed to show up and I was out of town. Except for that third time, and then he was dead.
He had a leg issue, which pushed you
Yeah,
over
it's
the
it's
edge.
it's unfortunate that he was, I was trying to film him, and he would have made it out there with plenty of daylight left to get some really good pictures and videos so I could use it in, the episode that we make on him down the road is what the plan was. And um, yeah, it was just unfortunate that he had an injury and he had to die.
Yeah. This is Aaron, and I want to take a quick break from the podcast to talk to you about our first ever partner of the Prayin and Slayin podcast and official partner of Like the Fire Outdoors, Dead Nuts Outdoors. These guys allow you to take your range and practice experience to the next level with their ultra high definition, life size 2D targets. That's right, I said 2D. This technology is super cool because you no longer have to worry about bulky, weather beaten, 3D super heavy targets for your backyard. And for me personally, being a military family, this is super important. We're actually just gearing up to move to our next duty station here, and I get to fold my entire backyard range, which is a bighorn sheep, full-size grizzly bear, full-size elk, mule deer, pronghorn, and whitetail. All of these targets will fold up into just a few inches of space and weigh like just a couple pounds altogether. That's super cool. And they also just introduced their Vital X technology, which actually gives you guys an inside look at the real 3D anatomy of each individual target. Whether you're shooting a black bear versus an elk versus a whitetail, you just simply scan the target. It shows you a 3D real anatomy image of what's going on inside that target, so you can just get educated on why each shot is important and where that arrow or bullet that you hit, what it's actually doing inside as it affects that animal. Guys, if you want to check out more, go to www.deadnutsoutdoors.com. We are so proud to be partnered with these guys and taking their business to the next level. And please check them out again, www.deadnutsoutdoors.com. All right, now let's get back to the episode. Well, congrats on that. I mean, that's pretty incredible. And also outsmarting the hunters that gave him or the people, I guess, that gave him his name anyway, by parking down the road a little bit further, tricking them too. That's pretty good. Awesome. So I guess fast forward a little bit, and you talked about this big 8-point, maybe pushing them around a little bit. So the big mean buck in the area sounds like it's this 8-point. And then deer hunters that are listening, they'll know that you've got bucks that are just bullies and they push other deer around, and deer that live in a spot will leave just to avoid them for the rut and then come back when they're gone. So I'm guessing it sounds a little bit like this was the big bad daddy in the area. So tell us a little bit about this 8-point. Does he have a name, or is he just the 8-point?
Yeah, we didn't give him a name. He didn't have anything unique to him to really give him a name. He was just a big 8-point. He's definitely the bully buck. Not all big bucks are bully bucks. I've seen a lot of big bucks that are just more reclusive and they don't fight at all. And this buck was not that. He was very aggressive, and he was always solo because I think he just made everybody else, fear him or hate him. But yeah, you're talking about outsmarting the car, that was going by and honking. We have about, I think it's 20 acres right there. And then it's the 5 kind of huntable acres on that edge right across the road. People are hunting that. 2 or 3 guys hunt that. Literally at the top of the Pine Ridge, on 4 acres, somebody's hunting that. There's 60 acres behind us that has shooting houses all down that power line. And then down the street and kind of to the right, a guy's hunting back behind a spot there. And then I had 2 people call me in the off season and try to get permission from the landowner to hunt the spot that we have. And so it's a very, high pressured area. And that's why I tell my team, I'm like, just don't, I don't want to deal with the headache of a bunch of people because, somebody sees a big buck and, next thing you know, they're 100 yards into our property and we got somebody hunting there, and it can just lead to some bad situations. So, and plus, people aren't supposed to poach, but it's frustrating to see how many people actually do. But yeah, so I had to figure out these deer, and like if I'm that deer, where would I want to live, to where I know I'm safe? And especially with this 8-point, because he was a lot more elusive than Honk was, because he was a 5.5, 6.5 year old. I could have killed him when I've seen him for the last 3 seasons. So season 1 could have killed him probably 5, 6 times, like just chasing does, in the rut. Like he didn't show up until the rut. Had him in the crosshairs once, didn't shoot him. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna let him walk. And then you move over to the second year that I was hunting him, and he was a nice bug, but he was kind of just for me on that line where I'm like, dang, he's made it 1 year that I've been hunting here. Let's just let him go another year. I mean, he grew a pretty good bit. Let's see what he looks like next year. So I saw him a couple of times that next year, and it was like just letting him walk. And I think I have some video footage of him. I'll have to go back and, oh Lord, I hope I can find it now that we've killed him. But yeah, he's just a beautiful buck. But last year I just knew like, man, he's going to be something special if we can get him to live. And then I'm like, our season ended like around February 10th again last year, maybe on February 10th. I don't remember. But like a few days after it went out, he was on camera. And I was like, yes, he made it. And then Honk showed up. Honk showed up like a couple days later and he made it. So I'm like, yay, both of them made it. We let them walk and they didn't die from all the hunting pressure around us. Every time I hear a gunshot, I'd be like, oh no, somebody shooting a spike. And we immediately think somebody shot our buck,
Yeah.
but, but yeah, this buck was super difficult this year. The only day he daylighted was the day we killed him.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason I knew to put Devin on that power line, and so just for everybody listening, Devin is on our staff. He shows up every time we ask him to show up. He helps every time we need him to help. He'll give you the shirt off his back. Great guy. I I'll do anything to help somebody who has that attitude. And he had never killed his first buck. He's helped other people kill their first deer, helped other people kill their first bucks. All season, he's put everybody first. And I told him, like, you are hunting, like you need to hunt. So he's hunted really hard. Like he's got a Monday through Friday work schedule, and he's got a couple of spots that, or I have a couple of spots close to where he works that he can sneak in and get in there right at last light kind of deal. So he's tried that. Like, I mean, he's probably done that 30, 35 times, just when the wind's right, but he, with my crossbow, he tried to shoot a younger 8 point. He missed, shot a little over top its back. It ducked the arrow. With rifle, he got a little excited being by himself. It was a 200-yard shot. I mean, it's a good poke. And he shot over top of the 6 points back. And
Man.
then this one's very interesting. So, this 8 point, I know that always these last like 2 or 3 days of season that this buck will show up to eat, to refuel, and kind of go into his secondary rut phase because the secondary rut here in Alabama will run all the way until March. And I knew he's kind of refueling, and so we always put down these high protein blocks right there at the end of season. I've had a lot of success with them, aside from just your basic corn that doesn't have a lot of nutritional value. So I put down these blocks, and he won't nibble on it long. He's going to get a little bit, but then he's going to take off, and he's going to come back. He's going to nibble on it a little bit. He's going to take off. I mean, he's not. He's focused on breeding, and so in the last month and a half, he's probably lost anywhere from 60 to 70 pounds, if I had to imagine. I mean, he is very small in body weight compared to what he was, before the rut kicked off. And so I know he needs that protein. He needs that protein. There's water right there at the base of the power line. And so we're trying to set it up to where we have a mock scrape, we have his food, and we have water for him so he can accomplish everything that he needs to do. He can get something to drink, he can eat, and he can, focus on his breeding all right there in one spot. And so he nibbled a little bit and then he was going over to work his mock scrape, and then that's where Devin shot him. But what is unique about this is because we know he shows up, but the wind Saturday was very variable. Like it was changing directions and kind of blowing all over the place. And so we set Devin's gun up in the tripod at 110 yards where you shoot. And then we backed way back to where you can still see the power line, but you cannot shoot from there because it's so thick. So you just have to constantly check with binoculars and hope that you see him, and then you got to literally swing around about 100 yards to the gun, hope you don't get heard, and hope you don't get smelled in the time that it takes you. And so you'll see, I'll share these trail camera videos. So I got a picture of the trail camera, which Devin doesn't have. I wasn't there. I got to send him over there. So I have a picture of the trail camera. I call Devin and I can hear him running. And I'm like, okay. So I start coaching him through it. I'm like, look, you're really worked up right now. Like, you're not going to miss again. I need you to calm down, take a good shot. Well, at the same time, I'm like internally like, oh my gosh. And so I'm changing the camera from photo mode to video mode. I'm sending an on-demand photo, so the settings push through real quick. And so we get a video of the deer nibbling a little bit, walking across. You can tell he's like hearing Devin probably come through the woods and maybe smell him a little bit, but he flicks his tail kind of left and right, like, no, I'm good. And then he dies. And so all of this was on camera. It was really cool. The Tacticam got it. It was really, really neat. But yeah, it was very hard because with the wind kept shifting from a north to a south wind, and I know where that buck specifically, like I know where he beds in the edge of the vines in the kudzu, and he beds strategically where he can get those variable winds. And even if it is a strong like north wind, he'll still if the wind switches just a little bit, if you get just a little bit of wind switch, that buck is going to smell it. And so I've scouted and learned that buck so much. Like he's a lot more intelligent than Honk because he's got at least 2 years on him. And he is very, very conservative with his movements and very methodical. And I had to know where he was bedding, had to know where he was at, and I had to know what days he was showing up. And then the day that we know he's probably supposed to show up these last 3 days of season, then the wind's all over the place. It's not normal like where it's just a couple of wind switches a day. I mean, it was constant. I mean, it was doing this the day before I was in there. I actually ended up leaving because I'm like, I'm not hunting here because I'm not going to educate this deer to the pressure. So when Devin wanted to hunt the next day, I told him, I said, hey, whatever buck steps out, I said, you shoot it. And I didn't tell him the big 8 point was going to be the one because I know he's young enough in his hunting journey that he doesn't know right off the moment if it's a big buck or not. He's still like, oh, antlers,
Yeah, cool.
boom.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, yeah. And so, when I saw it was that buck, I didn't even tell him. I just said, "Hey, do you see the buck on the power line?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw it. I saw it in binoculars. I'm running around." And so he goes through. You have to dive and crawl and jump through all these vines, and you get around to it. And I'm like, "Okay, are you set up?" I was like, "Dude, just take your time. Like, calm down. I want you to visualize the shot. Okay, do you feel good about it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I feel good about it." He said, "Let me put my phone down." He puts the phone down. And it's like, and I'm like, "Oh God." Like there's no way he shot that fast and made a good shot.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hitting refresh on the camera and I press play and it's right on the edge of the frame. I see the buck drop and then kind of flop. And I was honestly very concerned it was a spine shock shot and he didn't kill him. And that's what it probably would have been if he wasn't fortunate and the deer had tons of oxygen in his lungs. So his lungs were full capacity and expanded. And so where he shot right up under the spine to shock the spine, it also hit the top of the lungs. I mean, by an inch when we
Oh,
gutted him. And so he dropped him right there. I mean, he flopped like 10 yards and was dead. And it's a good buck. I always say this is when you walk up on them and they keep getting bigger as you walk up on them, that's always
yeah.
a good sign. If they start getting smaller, it's not. And that buck kept getting bigger. So we're expecting him to come around somewhere around 140 inches as an 8 point, which
Wow.
anywhere is respectable, but Alabama, I mean, that is a giant.
Dude, that's amazing. Well, congrats to Devin, dude. That's sounds like couldn't have happened to a better guy either. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, both of those bucks, it was very unique ways that we had to hunt them and kill them. And so even to the point where the bucks would pattern in if we came down the side road and we parked down the side road, we had to start parking down the road even further and then walking in. And then it was just a lot that went into it to have that success and to be able to do it in the last weekend of season for Devin is it was just really special because he's helped a lot of people this year.
Yeah, man, that's incredible, dude. That's and I love the just both those stories. The idea that a deer is patterning you and what you do like more than what it is, and we think we know a lot about them, but at the end of the day, they live out there 24/7, 365. Like you're walking into their bedroom, like you could tell probably if you open your front door if something was weird in your house that wasn't supposed to be there just because you live there every day. You can just feel it, right? Like, and they're
Yep.
using every sense of their imagination, like the wind to us, we're noticing how it's blowing on us, but we don't probably smell 99% of what's in the air that they pick up on and all the little things. So that's pretty incredible, man. And all the data you're putting together and saying, okay, this day, but and then you got to cross your fingers a little bit on conditions if the day's right. But that's awesome.
Yeah, I always say that hunting is still luck. You know, you've got to be in the right place, right time, and hopefully maximize your luck. There is a lot that can go into it that, you can choose, and those variables can be less of a variable and more absolutes. But at the end of the day, there's still some level of luck involved. And you just got to hope you're there when the luck goes your way. And you know, if you think about from if you put yourself in a buck's perspective, especially a large buck, he's probably had people shoot at him with a spotlight at night. I mean, he's probably had people try to run him over. He has definitely had people try to hunt him every way possible,
Hmm.
and he lives there 24/7. And so I like to think of, talking about the intelligence of a dog earlier, but I like to think about my grandparents. They had, the old country, their house had that old country front porch on it, and the road went by out in front of them, and everybody that went by, they waved at, and they knew their names, they knew their vehicles, they knew where they lived down that road. And it wasn't a dead end road. It was a through road, but they would know. And if somebody's vehicle went down that road that they didn't know, they would have a conversation about it. And
Yep.
if
Yep.
somebody had something broken into, they would be able to give a vehicle description and say, hey, this is the time window that this happened. And, they knew every little thing. Old people, they're nosy. They don't have anything else to do. If you think
Yep.
about the nosy neighbor, we had some great neighbors when we lived in Montgomery. I was telling you about, most of them were older. But every time we went, if we were gone for more than 2 days, they would call our cell phone and say, hey, are y'all okay? We noticed that y'all didn't come home last night. It's a
Wow.
great thing. But if you
Yeah.
think of that from a buck's perspective, like if I go and, uh, excuse me, but if you think about that from a buck's perspective, what I did 2 weeks ago, we got a really heavy rain and we had more rain coming behind it. So hopefully my scent washes away. It's not going to wash away completely, but hopefully it does a little bit, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go scout today. I scout a lot during season, but with those big bucks, I try to stay out of it and let them have their, way of moving about the woods without them knowing I'm there, hopefully. But I was getting really frustrated with that 8 point because I had left a couple of times and he showed up like within 5 minutes of me leaving the hunting spots. I knew he had me patterned. I knew he had to be sitting somewhere where he could hear me, watch me, smell me, something. And I go walking up in there, and that impassable part of the vines in the kudzu, I'm kind of skirting the edge because I can see the main like doe trail and young deer trail, and then I can see this really faint buck trail. And the way I knew it was faint is because it was wet, and they're heavier, so they're going to push down into the ground more. We can't snow track here, so rain's about the closest thing that we can get to it, and it's just the impression in the ground, how its diameter and how deep. And so I start following this one, and I'd like lose it. So I'd back up, I'd go back forward, I'd lose it, I'd go back up, I'd go back forward. And then finally I'm like, you piece of crap. I was pissed. I was pissed. So that buck, that day, I was saddle hunting, and because this was the day that we had a west wind, I knew they had went uphill. I knew that I could kill him with my saddle. I was trying to kill that big buck with my pistol. And I'm in my saddle and in the thickest of cover, but just have a one little lane to shoot through when they come out. And I remember I heard something that was in an abnormal location at an abnormal frequency. Like it wasn't birds, it wasn't squirrels, like it sounded like a deer, but like a decent deer, like moving around. I put my binoculars on it and I could see something moving through all that thickness. But I mean, it's so thick in there that like until the deer are within 5 yards of coming out onto that power line, like you don't see them.
Hmm.
That's how thick it is. And so, but I could see something moving and I'm like, man, I'm almost 100% sure that's a big buck. Like it just looks like a bigger body up in there. And so when I was scouting that day, I'm like, I'm gonna, work around, with the wind conditions right, but I'm gonna find where that deer that I think I saw that day is sitting and see what I can see from that vantage point. And I was so stinking mad. So he couldn't see me come in, but he knew I was there. I did a couple of call sequence. I did a couple of rattles, and thinking they might be off in the distance. That joker was 40 yards from me, laying there the entire time. It was 100% his bed. It had rubs all around it, and it's the type of rubs he makes. Like all the other deer don't make these type of rubs. I mean, I'm talking some big, aggressive, mean rubs, where it looks like they've scraped back because they're pushing the tree so hard.
Yeah.
His body, his huge body imprint was in the ground. His tracks were leading in and out of it in the dirt. I mean, that was his bedroom when he was in there, when he showed up around the start of January and didn't leave. And, he'd leave about mid-January, so he'd be there about 2 weeks, and then he comes back the first week, second week of February. That's where he lives. And from that buck bed, I could see the ridge coming off. I could see the trails coming in down the stream. So he could see all the deer movement. He could see every doe that he might be wanting to pursue or another buck that may be after a hot doe and he wants to intercept and take it over. He could see the road very sparingly, but you could see the road, and you could hear the cars going by. He could see through the trees because even though it's thick, when you're on the outside looking in, you can't really see through all that thickness. But looking out, because the lights got the background of it, you can see that whole power line. And then he couldn't have seen me come in, but obviously, like if I call from the same place, I only try to do it sparingly. But if I call from the same place twice and I rattle from the same place twice over a 12-hour period, I mean, he's pretty much knows, hey, that's an idiot in the tree over there. The wind didn't blow one time to him. It did not blow the entire time. But I got down like a ninja and I tried to ease out. Well, what happens next? He can't see where I'm parked, but he can hear where I'm parked. He can hear a car crank up because when I'm sitting there, I hear all kinds of things. I hear the people in an argument at the house, half a mile away. It's crazy what you can hear when you're sitting there dead silent. But he hears my truck crank up, hears me take off, and then next thing you know, boom, camera goes off.
That's
He's
incredible,
working,
man. And 40 yards from
working
you
the
too.
box straight, 40
Yeah.
yards.
That's insane, and it's amazing too, like how patient those big bucks will be. I don't have a, I'm sure I've walked by more of them in that probably similar instance than I could ever even count. But the only story I've got that's halfway similar, where I got to experience it, I was a young hunter. I hunted the same tree stand every single year, walked in the exact same way every single year. And you could tell like the first 2 years, like the amount of sign you would see in this area during the rut was mainly like the does hung out in this area, but it was like 3 or 4 awesome properties, and this was a rut corridor. Like the rut is when you wanted to be hunting this property, so I just got lucky with that. But anyway, after 2 years, the sign started changing to where it just wasn't as much or as aggressive, whatever. But one night I tried to do something a little different. I got in there late. I didn't want to go into the woods and blow anything out. So I sat down. I saw the biggest buck of my life on the hoof that I've ever seen. He came out chasing some does, never came my direction. And then I went in there a couple mornings later, just first thing in the morning. I walked in there. I actually hunted a little bit. I actually went in there, hung a stand one day, came back a week later, I think. But based off of where this buck was, I was like, oh, that makes sense because the different trails I've been seeing, whatever. I get in there, climb the morning, don't see a single deer all morning, and I watch a couple bucks fight out in this pasture, which I'd never seen. So I'm filming that. Thought that was cool. And then out of nowhere, I hear like a twig break behind me, and I've got the bow hanging up, not expecting to see anything. So I stand up and I just real slowly turn around, and that big giant, I bet he was a 200-inch deer, just monster. He'd been laying 30 yards from my stand all morning against a brush pile, so I never once even decided, like, thought I would ever look down there, like looking right
Yeah.
over the top of him all morning long. And he just like looks up in the tree at me, and he's got frost and stuff on his back, and stretches, looks back up at me, and just shakes off. And I can't even like turn around to grab my bow or anything. Like he's got me. shakes the
there.
dust off his back and walks off, drops down in the creek and disappears. I was like,
Yep.
you've got to be kidding. And he was just so cool, calm, and collected, like nothing. Like he just knew, like, I've got you, dude. Like, and by the
That's
way, if I
exactly
would have
right.
made one weird movement, I'm sure he would have booked it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
incredible what they'll let you, what they will put up with when they just know that, okay, like, I've got him. Like, he can't do anything to me right now because
yep.
I've got him pinned, you know. That's
That's
nuts.
exactly right. Yep. It is wild. Yeah. I tell people that, you know, you know, deer are not in a hurry to die. So don't be in a hurry to hunt.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, you said that earlier. That's great advice.
you may feel all this anxiety that your plan to hunt that day in the tree you want to get to, you've slept in late or whatever, you've got to hurry up and get there. The amount of deer you're probably going by uh, are are probably the bucks you want to kill, you know. And another thing too is don't get in a hurry to hunt. What I did yesterday is I went in a property, you know, trying to get this slug gun buck, and I know where we've been kind of taking minties, and I know where I've hunted a couple times. So it's like I'm gonna do completely everything opposite. I parked across the road at a friend's house, walked down the road, you know, up through, you know, some rough stuff, and then came in the backside, sit on a ridge. And within an hour of daylight, I've got one of the bucks that I want to shoot with my shotgun working a scrape 100 yards from me. I don't know why, but he worked that scrape and turned around and went back the opposite direction. The wind never once, you know, it was a strong wind. So I know even with thermals, you know, it was all going up and over. I was dropping milkweed the whole time and it kept going up. I think it was just he was going to work that scrape and it's the edge of the property where the road and railroad is. And me just going back the other way to start scent checking for does some more.
Hmm.
And but because I changed it up, I saw that buck, you know, and you got to be willing to change it up. And another thing that I'll do sometimes is I'll go in, you know, drive my truck in, you know, do the thing that I would normally do or somebody would normally do, and then make it out like I'm leaving. And you know, it helps if you have a buddy do this with you, but you know, pull in, park where you're going to park, make the noise, get up in the stand or whatever, and then have the other person leave the exact way that you normally do. And we've been able to kill a lot of good deer like that too.
Yeah. That 5 minute window where they're coming in after they hear all the things or maybe even watch or whatever, you know, and they're like, oh, he's gone. That's that's an interesting tactic. Never thought of that before. Well,
Yep.
that's awesome, man. Two awesome deer. You know, one maybe a little earlier than you wanted to, but either way, a heck of a story. And it was you that got to put that tag on him, which is probably appropriate. And then obviously helping your buddy get the big eight. We're definitely going to have pictures where I can find them and put them out there for you guys to see and some teasers before this episode launches, so you guys will see that. And then just one thing, man, like you know, obviously with Revive Outdoors, I think it makes a lot of sense. But what's one piece of advice for you know veterans, you know, wanting to get outside and start exploring that place, or you know, just anybody, but more veterans in particular, I guess, for this episode, you know, where can people find resources to get out there and get connected in the outdoors world to start, you know, maybe healing or getting involved in something that can start changing some of their lives a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always reach out to us at Revive Outdoors. I mean, we have guys that are in other states that are on our team. So you can reach out to us. Reviveoutdoors.org is our website, and you can fill out our contact form or just email us at info@reviveoutdoors.org, and we can help get you connected. Even if it is afar, I mean, we have virtual staff meetings, and you have a whole team of guys that are in a group you know, in a group message on an app that are constantly encouraged, and you can ask questions, and you know, we kind of all talk about it internally, but you know, you got 25, 30 guys that are in there that are cheering for you, that are wanting you to succeed. And it can be on the same property or it can be a property 4 states away. You know, we're all in it for the same reasons, and you know, your success is our success. And if you're looking for a great group of guys that just need some encouragement, you know, you just need some encouragement in your life, that's what you'll find. You know, our mission statement is to make a positive and eternal impact. And so positive is more along the lines of mental health side, and then eternal is through our Christian faith and our walk. And you know, if anybody's watching this and you're not a Christian, that's okay. You can be a part of us too. You know, we will share about the Lord. You know, for me, at one point in time, my best friend passed away, and I didn't believe in God. And you know, I tell people that say, "Hey, I'm agnostic or I'm atheist," you know, that say they don't believe in God. I just say, "Well, I don't believe you." And the reason why is because even when I said that I was that way, God created us, he formed us, he knows every hair on our head. And, he created us in our mother's womb, and we have a longing desire to be in relationship with our Father. And, it's like for me, I've never met my real dad, my biological father. There's still that desire. Now I'm mature and healthy, and understand there needs to be boundaries in place with where he's at in his life. It's unfortunate, but there's still that longing for that father role in your life, and that comes from our Heavenly Father. He's the only one that can fill that. And so I would just say to you, if you're broken, you're hurting, there is hope. There is hope in Jesus, but if you're looking for some guys that aren't going to be weird about it, and you just want to have some open and honest conversations, we're those guys. Devin that killed that buck, he wasn't saved. He's been on our team for over a year, and he wasn't saved. He got saved at our staff retreat, and not once. I mean, you can ask him. We didn't pressure him one time. We didn't, act weird. We didn't treat him differently. It's just one of those things. We welcome everybody in, and we just want to be an encourager to you. And life sucks sometimes, and you need somebody just to help you get through it.
No, great stuff. And that's www.reviveoutdoors.org is your website where they can find you.
Yep.
And email, and then obviously all across social and stuff too. You guys, Revive Outdoors,
Yep.
great organization. And well, Taylor, thank you so much, man, for coming on again for the second time and telling both these deer stories. We're expecting one, we got two, which is awesome, and great learning a little bit about you and your military background, and you're 2 for 2 on being the first person in 2 different series of episodes that we'll have here on the Prayin and Slayin podcast. But thank you so much for your service, brother. It means the world to everybody, and thank you for your devotion to God and Christ, and all the message you got to bring through that as well. It's really special to have that on here, and we hope it reaches. We know it'll reach people, but excited to have you on here, man, and telling the deer stories and those stories. So with that, we'll let you get back to her, man. I know you're probably itching to get back. If today's the last day of season, you need to get out in the woods and get that slug gun kill.
That's right.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much again for being on. Thank you for your service, and we look forward to hopefully having you on another one.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Aaron, and thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for your service, and anybody else watching. Thank you for yours that served, and thanks for your time. I'm honored that you'd have me on.
Heck yeah, man. Until next time.
See ya.
Well, man, we couldn't be more excited to kick off our Operation Hunt series, and especially having Taylor to help us kick off 2 series in a row, the Conservation Series first with Revive Outdoors, and the Operation Hunt series here with his story of HONK and the bonus Big 8. Couldn't think of a better way to kick something off than with an extra bonus deer story. Man, again, I'm going to end with the same verse that we did this last time. Again, listening to Taylor and their story with Revive Outdoors, and how Taylor constantly strives to put mentees and the people that these people mentor above himself, but to serve a bigger purpose is just outstanding. I think at the end of the day, that's what God wants for all of us, is to put others first, so we can glorify Him, and at the end of the day, help boost the platforms that we spend our lives building to bigger heights than we could ever imagine. And first step is to put others before yourself. So Philippians 2, again, 3 and 4, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out for only your own interests, but take interest in others too. And with that, guys, we're going to let you guys get back to it. Thank you so much for tuning into part 2 of our Operation Hunt series. We have another Operation Hunt in the books for you guys with an awesome old-time buddy of mine. Been friends with him for a lot of years. Justin Wilson will come on and tell the story of Goalpost. So stay tuned for that one. And we look forward to bringing you more conservation, community outreach, and all kinds of other good stuff. As always, go check out www.lightthefireoutdoors.com for all things Light the Fire Outdoors and Prayin and Slayin. And if you feel so inclined, there's Prayin and Slayin merch, decals, all kinds of cool stuff out there from Light the Fire Outdoors as well. Helps us support our mission and helps give back to veterans, conservation, and local community outreach projects in our neighborhoods where we're stationed, like the Sunfish Pond project that we have going on here in Maryland. So with that, guys, thank you so much. Also check out Dead Nuts Outdoors. They are our official sponsor for Prayin and Slayin podcast. And as always, keep praying and slaying.